Lizzie, I'm so glad you sent in a question. This is Melissa. Let's go ahead and figure out how we can solve this equation here using the quadratic equation. Well, we both know that you know what the quadratic equation is. But before we write anything out, because this is so tricky with the negatives and the fractions and stuff, let's go ahead and mark down what our A, B, and C values are. So A is the number in front of the squared term. That's equal to 1. B is the number in front of the non-squared term, or the regular P term right here. Negative 5/3. We got to make sure we include that negative. And C is the number with no P at all. And that is negative 1/3. Plugging this all into the quadratic formula, we're going to plug everything in first and then simplify. Doing this in 2 different steps is very, very important and will help eliminate any error, especially when we have all these double negatives that are going to be running around. So the quadratic formula will give us what P is equal to, and it is negative B, so negative 5/3, plus or minus the square root of B squared, so this is going to be negative 5/3 squared, minus 4 times A, which is 1, times C, which is negative 1/3, all over 2A, so 2 times 1. Before I rewrite anything, we have a lot of double negatives in here. Let's go ahead and simplify them. So it looks like I have a double negative right here. Those are going to cancel each other out. I'm just going to mark that down before I do anything so I don't confuse myself. This negative is inside the squared, so it's going to get canceled out by the squared. If it were outside the squared, it wouldn't get canceled out. It looks like we have 2 double negatives right here, so these are also going to cancel each other out. So let's go ahead and simplify those. Now let's rewrite the expression above. So P is equal to 5/3 plus or minus the square root of 5/3 squared, which is 25 over 9, plus 4 times 1 times 1/3. So we're just going to multiply across the top and then multiply across the bottom there, all over 2. Now let's simplify underneath the square root. We need to add some fractions here, but there's not a least common denominator. So let's go ahead and get one. I'm going to put these in parentheses first, and then we're going to multiply by 3 over 3 to get a least common denominator of 9. This simplifies into 5/3 plus or minus the square root of 25/9 plus 4 times 3 is 12 over 9, 3 times 3, all over 2. We can't forget that that 2 is still there on the bottom. So let's keep simplifying. This is a nasty arithmetic problem, but I'm absolutely confident that you can do it. So 25, these have a least common denominator now. So we could technically combine them and then add the numerator. I'm going to do it all in one step. 25 plus 12 is 37. And both of my terms share a denominator of 9, so that 37 just goes over a 9. And that is over 2. Couple more simplifications and we should be done. This is 5/3 plus or minus the square root of 37 over 9. We can actually split up the square root there if we want, so that it becomes the square root of 37 over the square root of 9, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. And that's still over 2. And that is equal to 5/3 plus or minus. Square root of 37 does not simplify. 37 is a prime number. But the square root of 9 certainly does. That simplifies to 3. and that's all over 2. It looks like these guys have a least common denominator, and even though I can't really combine them, I can still put them over a unified denominator. So let's go ahead and do that. So this is 5 plus or minus 37 over 3, and that's all over 2. The very last step is to get rid of this ugly complex fraction that's going on. The way that we do that, dividing is the same thing as multiplying by a reciprocal. So since dividing is the same thing as multiplying by a reciprocal, I can multiply by the reciprocal of 2 and change this into something that's not a complex fraction. So 5 plus or minus the square root of 37 over 3 times the reciprocal of 2, since dividing is the same thing as multiplying by a reciprocal. I'm going to go ahead and put these in parentheses just in case, and I'm going to simplify. So 5 plus or minus the square root of 37 times 1 just simplifies to 5 plus or minus the square root of 37, and the bottom simplifies to 6. And that is your final answer for this problem. Thanks again for your question, Lizzie, and I look forward to answering more of your questions using SnapMath in the future.